and welcome to the most action-packed half hour you're going to find in Kentuckiana as Louisville Speedway presents Let's Go Racing as we're ready to get things going here in front of the Big Miller Genuine Draft Can from a busy weekend at Louisville Speedway. And we're about to take a look at all the exciting highlights. Frank Scott will have those highlights for you in just a moment. But before we get to that, I do want to talk to you about what's coming up because we still have two big weekends of racing left at Louisville Speedway. This coming weekend, Gatorade Season Championships in all our divisions will crown all the season champions and settle some very tight point races. In addition, the Ken Towery General Tire Rookie Bomber of the Year race is part of the Friday show. And on Saturday, along with the season championship races, we'll have a lot of fun with the annual Independent Industry Celebrity and Corporate Challenge races. A lot of your favorite celebrities will be racing, as well as many of the top business and civic leaders helping to raise money for independent industries. And then, of course, the final weekend of the season will come up with the Figure 8 Classic and the Big Bomber and Mini Stock races. But we're going to go to the highlights right now from last weekend at Louisville Speedway. And with that, here's Frank Scott.
Thank you very much, Scott Douglas. Hello, everybody. Frank Scott here in a very wet pit area. The weatherman wasn't so kind to us Saturday afternoon. We're getting things dried up here. In just a few moments, we'll see the highlights and racing results from Saturday evening here at Louisville Motor Speedway. But first, let's look back at Friday night. Three great racing division, 2-point battles in question. In the Pronto Auto Parts Monroe Shocks Figure 8 division, Danny Blackwell, going into last Friday night's competition, held a 46-point lead over his closest pursuer, Raymond Johnson. John Basham right there as well. He's only 2 points behind Raymond Johnson, so any of those top three could come away with the championship. Right now, though, it's Blackwell with the advantage going into last weekend's racing competition. You have to finish 13th or better in the feature event to gain any points. Let's see how those drivers did. In addition to that, it's the Winston Martin Landscaping Sportsman Division as Rick Irwin goes into last weekend's racing action with a 43-point advantage over his nearest pursuer, Chuck Winders. So let's take a look at the racing event action and find out if our point leaders stayed on top, whether they dropped back a little, and who will have the advantage going into the upcoming weekend's championship nights.
Look at the 30-lap main event for the Winston Martin Landscaping Sportsman Division, and moving off into turns 1 and 2 with the number 22 of Les Vogt on the inside, the 29 of Reed Boone up on the outside as they move down the back straightaway. Steve Miles in there at third place along with Chuck Barnes as they move out of turn number 4 and down the front straightaway, and Donnie Sullivan rounding out that top 5. David Mack up on the high side at 6th as they move into turns 1 and 2. But it's Les Vogt who's the early race leader. The race was caution flagged inside the first 10 laps for a 3-car spin going into turns 1 and 2. When they were lined back up again, it was Reed Boone, though, in the number 29, who took the lead away from Les Vogt and stretched it out to about 2-car lengths. Chuck Barnes in the number 5 glides up along the inside of the number 49 of Steve Miles to nail down third place as they race back into turns 1 and 2. Eventually, Les Vogt dropped back some in the lineup, and then Chuck Barnes in car number 5 came to the inside of Reed Boone. Boone driving the Integral Structures, Riverport Warehouse, Sound Advice, Varga Plumbing, Racing Chevrolet, and Overhead Door Garage Company, sponsored Chevrolet. But it's the number 5 of Chuck Barnes who moves to the inside and takes away the lead. Car number 90, Rick Irwin, the Banquet Table Buffet Racing Chevrolet, closes in to run at third place. Eventually, Irwin took over second and really put the pressure on Chuck Barnes over the final few laps. But it was Chuck Barnes claiming the feature event victory, driving the Barnes Auto Service, Robert Hobart Trucking Company, Snap-on Tools, Bibby's Barbecue, and Frederick Auto Supply Racing Chevrolet taking the victory. It was Rick Irwin for second. Scott Dewey finished up at third, while Joe Williamson Jr. at fourth, and Chuck Winders finishing up at fifth. Rick Irwin was able to gain some substantial ground and keep the point lead over Chuck Winders following that event. Let's take a look at the racing action from the Pronto Auto Parts Monroe Shocks Figure 8 division with Charlie Hartz in car number 8, the early race leader. Art Grohl running at second. Wayne Shootman now runs at third. Butch Winters at fourth. And it's Doug Smith rounding out the top 5. Excuse me, that's Roy Smith. But look at some of the zaniness near the back of the pack. There's Pat the Wild Man Pierce in car number 59 completing the first lap in reverse. He spins it around and rejoins the lineup. Then the field races down into turns 3 and 4, and again Charlie Hart's out front. That Mike Dirham's Amco Transmission Center Racing Chevrolet. Art Grohl spins it around. Wayne Shootman nearly collects him, and then it sets up this zaniness at the intersection, racing through it 4 abreast in the early going. Eventually, the number 19 of Wayne Shootman driving the Martin Landscaping Vertree Sign Company Racing Chevrolet took the lead. The number 00 of Bobby Johnson at second, while Rocket Roger Vincent in car number 16 chased the leaders down into turns 1 and 2. Just a few laps later, though, and Bobby Johnson chased Shootman down for the lead. Makes his pass on the inside going into turns 1 and 2. And out of the second turn, Bobby Johnson has the lead, and he moves through the intersection with Wayne Shootman. A lap or so later, it's Rocket Roger Vincent in car number 16 challenging Shootman for second place. Raymond Johnson, who already had his night going bad when he had to stop early in the event, was collected at the intersection and spins around. The race was caution flagged for an accident at the intersection. We'll show you that on the greatest hits of the week portion of our program between Tom Winters and Calvin Crane. Here's the restart of the event with Bobby Johnson, your race leader, the number 16 of Rocket Roger Vincent at second. Vincent moves to the inside to try to take the lead away as they race over to turn number 4. He momentarily does, then falls back, and now Johnson has the better track positioning moving down into turns 1 and 2. Jim Berry in the number 51 right there at the third place spot as they race over to turn number 2. But in the end, it's the number 00 of Bobby Johnson driving the Etherton's Custom Cabinets Racing Chevrolet. The car also sponsored by Amco Transmission Center, taking the victory, his second feature event of the 1992 racing season, with Rocket Roger Vincent finishing up at second. Jim Berry for third. Tom Winters comes back from that collision at the intersection to finish fourth, and Chuck Angus rounds out the top 5. Chris Harmon won the B feature over Dennis Snow and Jeff Sherrill. In the Ken Towery Auto Care Center General Tire Rookie Bomber Division, Jerry Dowell takes the victory in the first feature event over Lynn Bunch and David Clevis. In the second feature event, it was Dwayne Gagel taking the victory over Spanx Overbeck and Sean Guess. Congratulations to this week's feature event winners, the Winston Martin Landscaping Sportsman Division going to Chuck Barnes, and in the Pronto Auto Parts Monroe Shocks Figure 8 Division, it was Bobby Johnson coming away with the feature event victory. Not much in the way of changing in the point standings for the Figure 8 Division. Danny Blackwell finished about 12th or 13th in that feature event. Raymond Johnson dropped out early. Both of those drivers only earning 2 points for their starts in that event. So the margin stays between 46 and 48 points between first and second place. Danny Blackwell will go into season championship night this weekend with that point advantage. Again, it's between 46, 48 points. We haven't done all the arithmetic yet. There's 52 points available, so Danny Blackwell just has to have kind of a mediocre night to claim his third Figure 8 title here at Louisville Motor Speedway. In the Winston Martin Landscaping Sportsman Division, as we've just seen, Rick Irwin by finishing second in the feature event, and Chuck Winters finishing at 5th place. Irwin still holds the point lead, and he actually gained some on Chuck Winters. So Irwin, once again, has to have a kind of a moderate night to clinch the championship coming up into this weekend's racing action. Before we take a look at Saturday night's racing competition, our own Scott Douglas is standing by with the 2 top contenders for the Winston Bush Late Model Track Championship, Keith Gardner, the point leader, and his nearest pursuer, Larry Metters.
Well, coming up this weekend, we're going to crown all the season champions at Louisville Speedway, and there are tight point races in many divisions, but one I know a lot of eyes are going to be on is certainly the most prestigious title in racing in this area, and that is the Louisville Motor Speedway Winston Bush Late Model Championship. And this man standing to my right is trying to go in uncharted ground. Nobody has ever successfully defended his season title. Keith Gardner, you guys are coming down to the wire with a shot at it. You've got to be excited about the possibilities.
Oh, yeah, it's real exciting. It's a tight battle, and we got Larry there's right on our tail, and he's been hot all year, so it's going to be close, and I guess we'll just race, and when it's all over, we'll see who's on top, I guess.
I guess of all people, you're probably not real thrilled about the way it is, but it always has been double points on championship night, and you know that coming in, and that really creates a lot more opportunities for a guy like Larry who's trying to catch you.
Yeah, it sure does. You know, I'd rather be ahead than behind, that's for sure, and the double points does help you make up a lot of points awful quick. But if we hang right in there and run right with him, you know, and don't lose too many spots, we'll be all right.
You know, I don't know how often we're able to really get into it with the fans and all, but when you're in a points battle, qualifying becomes critical, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's real critical. You always, well, it's critical all year, really, if you're running for a point championship, to be in the top qualifiers all year, because those points count a lot, and it also pays the finish feature. So, you know, every race counts, so you got to just look at it like that, you know.
As hot as this guy, who we're going to talk to in a minute, has been with all the wins this year, it has been equally, I think, as impressive the fact that you guys have finished every race in the top 10, the ultimate inconsistency for your team this year.
Yeah, it sure is. That's probably how we won the championship last year, and that's how we go at it every year, you know, is try to finish each and every race, and at the end, you know, you'll be right there in the hunt.
Well, we know it's going to be some great racing, and I guess the thing that, you know, when you're out there with Larry and guys like Winders and Kimmel, everybody's going to lay everything they got right on the table that night. Ought to be a whale of a race.
Be a heck of a race. Can't wait.
Good luck, Keith. Let's talk to Larry Metters, who's walked in on the other side here. And Larry, we were talking to Keith just a little bit about the fact that double points gives you some room, but for you've been trying to peck away at him. This guy's hard to make up points on.
I tell you, it's tough to make ground the way the point system is. I guess that's the best way, you know, that's the best way forward, but it's tough to make up any kind of points.
Still, this season has absolutely been a dream for you and your race team.
Oh, it has. I tell you, and I feel like I've really let my guys down because they've worked hard enough. They deserve to win the championship. If we don't, we still got a chance, but I'm not that good at running for points. I'm kind of win or nothing. You know what I'm saying? I've fallen out of races. I probably should have stayed out there. Keith and them, they do good at it. They're hard to beat.
You know, that is a great contrast because, indeed, Keith was just talking and will freely admit they know how to run for a points championship, and yet, even though you've won some titles, it looks like you're a guy who's going for the front or we see you on the trailer. It's one or the other.
I don't like to hold back. I probably should, you know, pace myself a little bit, but I like to win. I like to lead. I think it's good, you know, my sponsors, I know they enjoy seeing their car out front, and my guys feel good about it. So that's my philosophy. I feel like the more you win, the points will come to you. It just hadn't really worked out that way.
Has it dawned on you very much, or have you thought about it, the fact that 10 wins is just something nobody thought could be done with this kind of competition? I mean, you may be setting records, we don't know, but you may be setting records that it's going to take an awful long time to beat.
Well, I always thought, you know, the 3 years prior to this year that we'd raced here, it was as tough a competition as there was anywhere in the United States. Of course, this year it doesn't seem like that. We've won so many races. I still think it's tough. I may have hit on something that some of the other guys have had trouble with or something like that. I don't know if anybody will ever win 10 races again. I just don't know. It's hard to say.
So you guys have had an awful exciting run, and even if it doesn't come up, like you said, it's been a great year, but I know you guys are going to go charging and see if you can't make up a few points. And, you know, I know you don't wish bad luck on anybody, but Keith stayed consistent, and in a points race, hey, if he has any bad luck at all, I know you guys are going to be right there.
Well, I doubt whether his car will fall apart. They take good care of it, and it's steady. It's out there all the time, so it's going to be tough. We need luck.
So I guess all you're going to do is see if you can't win a couple more, huh?
I'm going to try.
Larry Metters, Keith Gardner. It's going to be a great race to the championship. Come on out and see the finale this weekend at Louisville Speedway.
We're expecting an all-out war this weekend between Keith Gardner and Larry Metters as the shootout begins. Double point night this Saturday night for the Winston Busch late model stock cars. In addition, a real good tight point race in the Dial 1 Oval Bomber division going into last weekend's racing action. Alan Williams Jr. along with Tony Hevern are tied for the point championship. We'll take a look in just a few moments and see who came out on top in that feature event, breaking that tie. We'll also take a look back at the Ken Towery Auto Care Center General Tire Mini Stock Division, where Dale Thomas has mathematically already clinched the season championship, but we'll find out if he gets his 8th feature event victory of the 1992 racing season. Of course, Jack Mann along with Greg Witt on top of the point standings in the banquet table buffet rookie figure 8 division, and we'll find out how that event went as well. But for more on that, let's take a look at the videotapes.
Taking a look at the 40-lap main event for the Winston Busch late model division, and rolling off into turns 1 and 2, Joe Williamson in car number 11 leads the field down into the first and second turn. Ron Phillips in car number 39 moves into second as Curtis Teague, who had the outside front row starting position, gets shuffled back in the lineup. The race was started a little bit earlier that evening, but red flag because of a massive accident on the back straightaway. We'll show you that accident during our greatest hits of the week portion of our program. As you can see, though, it's Joe Williamson of Chavley, Kentucky, the early race leader. He's challenged on the outside by Bill Kimmel Jr., as well as the number 39 of Ron Phillips. The number 05 of Larry Metters is right there as well as they race off into turns 1 and 2. A few laps later, Joe Williamson Sr. with the lead on the back straightaway. Larry Metters chucks it down underneath Bill Kimmel Jr. to make it 3 abreast. Ron Phillips on the outside, and then everyone gets crossed up in the 3rd and 4th turn area. Metters climbs over the front end of Bill Kimmel Jr.'s machine, but Brian Baum had no place to go and did massive damage to the front of his machine. Baum emerged from his car uninjured in this altercation. Because of Larry Metters' involvement in that accident, he was placed on the tail of the lineup. When the green flag reappears, it's Joe Williamson in car number 11 driving the world's fastest burrito out front. Preston Ford in the St. Matthews Imports. Carnival Shoes and Fashion Chevy Lumina comes to the inside of the Portland Recycling Racing Chevrolet, car number 39 of Ron Phillips. Directly behind him, defending late model track champion Keith Gardner and the current point leader, racing alongside with the number 8 of Chuck Winders, the 1989 track champion. With Williamson out front, Preston Ford running at second. Keith Gardner now makes his move around the outside of Ron Phillips to take over third, and he brings along Chuck Winders with him as they move into turns 3 and 4, dropping Phillips back to 5th place. Meanwhile, Larry Metters, driving somewhat of a bulletproof race car, begins making his mount towards the front of the field as he glides into 6th place position, making his move around the outside of Rick Irwin, and then begins chasing down the number 39 of Ron Phillips and Preston Ford. Keith Gardner at this point moves into 2nd, with Chuck Winders running 3rd, and Joe Williamson, your race leader. Unfortunately for Joe Williamson, a yellow flag appeared with only 3 laps remaining, but the green flag reappears and Keith Gardner simply can't keep up going into turns 1 and 2. His outside lane starting position was not the place he wanted to be, obviously, and Chuck Winders takes command of 2nd place. But there's Larry Metters in the number 05, racing past his arch rival for 1992, Keith Gardner, to take over 3rd place, dropping Gardner back to 4th. Moving down the back straightaway and down into turns 3 and 4, it's the Tumbleweed Mesquite Grill and Restaurant Racing Chevrolet. The car also sponsored by Kroger's Automotive and Able Auto Parts, as well as Pipe Fitters Local 522, the former NHRA drag racing champion and former dirt track racing champion Joe Williamson of Shively, Kentucky, holds on to the lead and wins his first feature event victory of 1992 over Chuck Winders and Larry Metters, as well as Keith Gardner, and rounding out that top 5, Rick Irwin. Well, there's a good look at him, Joe Williamson and the world's fastest burrito. And now for the Larry Metters of the Ken Tyree Auto Care Center General Tire Mini Stock Division, collecting his 8th feature event victory, the Bootleg Barbecue. Brian Smith Painting and Mutual Bombers Athletic Club Racing Mini Stock, car number 55, Dale Thomas, the current point leader and the season champion for 1992. Mike Freeman was 2nd, finishing up at 3rd. It was the number 85, Bob Brim, Jim Kirk at 4th, and rounding out the top 5, Gary Martin. In the B feature, it was John Hornan collecting the victory over Ronnie Schertzer and Rick Nolan. Dial 1 Oval Bomber Division racing action. Tony Thomas with the lead here. He holds on to it, collects the victory over Kelly Smith and Nick Reed Jr. In the B feature, it was Larry Dixon collecting the victory over Mike Milligan. And the C feature going to Debbie Bartley, the first woman to collect the feature event victory in the 1992 racing season in the Bomber Division. Rick Mears finishes up at 2nd. In the D feature, it was Terry Wilbert collecting the win over B.J. Strickland. And in the banquet table buffet, rookie figure 8 division, the number 79 of Greg Witt established some more LMS history last Saturday evening as he collected his 4th feature win. That's one more feature than anyone else in that division during the 1992 racing season. The victory coming over the number 7 of Donnie Skaggs, and finishing up at 3rd, it was the current series point leader, Jack Mann. The driver, the number 79, Greg Witt, sponsored by Bramer Construction Company.
it went this past weekend at Louisville Motor Speedway as all 7 great racing divisions went into action. But through all the racing here at the Speedway, we can only have one Top Dog of the Week award winner. And for that, let's go to Scott Douglas.
Well, it's time now to look at the top performances of this past weekend at Louisville Speedway as we hand out the Top Dog of the Week award. And it doesn't happen very often, but this week the panel is deadlocked, so we're going to give 2 Top Dog awards. First to Joe Williamson Sr. Joe coming up with his first victory in 3 years in Winston Bush late model competition, and he had to hold off all the top chargers to get the win. So congratulations to Joe Sr. and to Greg Witt, who recorded a division-leading 4th victory in the banquet table buffet rookie figure 8 division. So congratulations again to Joe Williamson Sr. and to Greg Witt, this week's Top Dogs of the Week.
Which brings us to the portion of this program which we so aptly title the greatest hits of the week. And sometimes in a season point battle or even in an 8-lap heat race, sometimes drivers make errors. Sometimes they go around the turn a little too fast. Sometimes they just simply don't see the driver in front of them. And sometimes there's mechanical problems with the cars. Let's find out who made this portion of our program this week.
Winston Martin Landscaping Sportsman race action in the heat race going into turns 1 and 2. And it's the number 31 of Danny Miller getting turned around, and then the number 81 of Doug Wicker collides, and then Pastor Ron Lasley connects up with the number 81 of Doug Wicker. Perhaps Pastor Ron Lasley's sermon this week may be on stopping before you get to heaven. The intersection was the scene of activity for the Pronto Auto Parts Monroe Shocks Figure 8 division as Tom Very Cold Winters in the number 88 collects the number 4 of Calvin Crane. Crane smokes the tires and tries to leave the scene of the accident. Unfortunately, he didn't get too far because he lost one of the tires. Troy Morrison in car number 53 shows us how to get through the intersection without being collected. Buck Pardue in the number 08 gets together with Larry Higgins at the intersection, and then Dennis Knoll puts the hammer on him. Rookie Bomber racing action at Louisville Motor Speedway, and then moving down into turns 3 and 4, 3 abreast racing action, and look out here on the front straightaway, several cars get collected. Also from the Rookie Bomber racing division at Louisville Motor Speedway, Sergeant Rick Jackman in car number 911 tries to climb over 2 Rookie Bomber competitors. Maybe Sergeant Jackman ought to write them a ticket for parking in a no parking zone. Maybe the most spectacular late model crash of the year occurs on the back straightaway. Lenny LeGrand hits the wall, almost comes to a stop. Then Scott Walters slams into him, breaking away the fuel cell. And it looks like a lot of high-octane racing fuel goes out onto the racing track. Fortunately, it did not ignite, and the LMS safety crew comes to everyone's assistance, and everyone emerged from their cars uninjured. But a very scary moment there when the fuel cell broke away from Lenny LeGrand's number 66 after Scott Walters collided with him on the back straightaway. Banquet table buffet, rookie figure 8 racing action, and at the intersection, it appears the number 23 of Stacy Kelly doesn't have the luck of the Irish with him as he collects Kenneth Crazy Like a Fox at the intersection. Following that accident, the race was started up again, only to have another accident happen. Going into turns 1 and 2, it's Lee Mann who gets connected up with Harry Pertiller, and then they crack the outside retaining wall barrier going into the pit area. Fortunately, no one was injured in that accident.
It's already been a history-making year for Larry Metters. We're about to find out in a few days if Keith Gardner will also make an equal statement in the history book, becoming the first Winston Bush late model driver ever to win back-to-back championships here at Louisville Speedway. And Frank Scott, as we talked to him earlier, I guess it's interesting that the only man that can keep Gardner from making that kind of history is a guy who has had a historic year in Larry Metters. And we heard from both of them earlier in the show. They're both confident, they're both excited. They know Gardner's got an advantage in the points, but you know Metters is going to charge to the front. And we'll see what Keith can do.
Well, again, it's a situation where you got to look at it this way. Suppose Gardner doesn't win the title. It hasn't been a big year of victories. Sure, he's gotten 3, maybe 4 feature event wins in, but other than that, he has not gotten the victory lane as many times as he would have liked. So a season title is a must for Gardner. On Metters' behalf, So what? What if he doesn't win the title? He's rolled into victory lane 10 times and has been probably the man to beat all year, the man that everyone's had their eyes on in the 1992 racing season, Larry Metters. So that's what it boils down to. Gardner has to win. Metters has had a great year regardless.
But it's interesting to note in the conversations and with the crew, these guys with the 05 shirts are just absolutely going nuts. They want this title badly, and you know, that's what Larry was talking about. And I think it's interesting, Frank, you followed a lot of these guys' careers, and it is, Larry, even though he's won some championship, has never really run for a lot of points. He likes to go to the front. This Gardner team knows how to win championships, no question about it.
Exactly, Scott. When you look at Larry Metters' resume, you see a list of all the great ASA sportsman races, of course the bluegrass, and you know, when it goes on down through the years, through the past over a decade of racing, Metters has won pretty much all the big events, and can't leave out that asphalt track championship twice, the asphalt race itself. Track championships are absent from Metters' resume. That's something he wants to add.
He'd like to do it. I'll tell you what, what's so great about it, it comes down to two of the great names in late model racing in this area, Keith Gardner and Larry Metters. They'll settle the most prestigious championship on Saturday. Frank, we focused on that one, but all the other titles are to be decided, and there's still points races that are very tight.
Even a closer point race than that. Going into last weekend's racing action, Tony Hevern and Alan Williams Jr. were tied for the point championship. They're going to have to decide things among themselves coming into this Saturday night's racing activities as well. Probably the only point situation is that of Dale Thomas. He's mathematically locked it up. He'll walk across the stage in a tuxedo in January to pick up that NASCAR silverware and all the point money.
Hope you can make it out here. We're going to crown Gatorade Season Championship races, so it's a special event in itself. Even if you're not in the points championship race, just ask Buck Skaggs how much fun it is to win that season championship race itself, and everybody's going to have that opportunity this weekend.
Extended lap feature events. We won't run heat races. It'll be for double points, so it's a pretty good sizable purse for the drivers to win an event like that, and they're going to be out on the racetrack longer, so it's always an exciting event. But the Independent Industry Celebrity Challenge and corporate races will be that night as well, Scott.
Don't want to leave anybody out, but just some of the names off the top that I know that have been coming. County Judge Dave Armstrong, Junior Bridgman, Rick Roby, several people from TV and radio in the area. Pete Capizzi and Bill Musselman was supposed to be back in. They both won the event before. And then several of the top business leaders throughout the community have helped support independent industries, and their businesses will be represented with their cars in the race. It's always a lot of fun.
How about my old buddy Reed Yaden? Reed Earnhardt Yaden. You think he'll be up for it?
He'll be up for it and ready. That's on Friday and Saturday. Well, the Independent Industries is Saturday. Season Championships Friday and Saturday. And then before we go, I hope you're ready to be out here Sunday afternoon. WAMZ's free concert. Billy Ray Cyrus, it may be one of the biggest ever. Just come on out. It is going to be fun. If you've never attended a WAMZ free concert before at the Speedway, this is one you want to make, because it is truly going to be an event.
If you're coming out for the concert, save me a seat, because I don't think there's going to be very many that are left unattended.
No, we hope so. It's going to be a great night. Come on out and join us. Big weekend. And remember, this is not it. There's more next weekend. We'll talk about that next Wednesday night at 11:30 here on Channel 15. Till then, I'm Scott Douglas.
And I'm Frank Scott. Keep us tuned in right here on WKPC Channel 15 for all the highlights and results from Louisville Motor Speedway.